Next to me is the all-new BMW 2 Series, and it's impressively quick. In fact, it's actually faster than the last generation M2 competition from 0 to 60 miles an hour. So what is the new 2 Series like to drive? Let's find out. The new 2 Series is offered in both coupe and grand coupe, aka sedan form. Although the sedan comes standard as front-wheel drive, whereas the coupe is rear-wheel drive standard, and offers less powerful powertrain options. The coupe is the one that both you and I really want. Under the hood of the M240i xDrive is a 3-liter turbocharged 6-cylinder, making an impressive 382 horsepower and 369 pound-feet of torque. That's more power than the original BMW M2 in a non-M car. Now, because this has the optional xDrive all-wheel drive, it can also sprint from 0 to 60 in a sports car fast 3.6 seconds. The silky smooth inline 6 is mated to ZF's 8-speed automatic transmission. It's got some updates though. The shifts themselves are quicker, it's got shorter gear ratios in the first through third gears for quicker acceleration, and then the higher gears have taller gear ratios for better fuel economy. The only downside is that's the only transmission available. That's right, you can't get the new 2 Series with a manual transmission. When the new 2 Series were released, the purple spec and the angles they took the picture didn't do the car justice. I'm gonna be honest, I didn't like the way it looked from photos. But in the flesh, the new 2 Series actually looks pretty good. For one, the kidney grills aren't the size of extra large pizzas. And if you look close, they've got gorgeous carbon fiber trim. They actually have active grills that are closed right now for better aerodynamics and better fuel efficiency. But if you need more cooling, these will open up to allow for additional airflow. I also love the fact that it's got really aggressive daytime running lights and a bulge on the hood. This isn't even an M car, and it's got a pretty darn aggressive front fascia. Got some nice carbon fiber work on the front splitter as well. This M240 is finished in Melbourne Red, one of 7 exterior colors to choose from, and it suits the M240 really, really well, as does the optional M Performance carbon fiber bits. From the factory, we've got this gorgeous carbon fiber rear spoiler, a nice aggressive carbon fiber rear diffuser, side skirts, front splitter as well, all the stuff that you'd want to do aftermarket straight from the factory. On the inside, the new 2 Series feels very familiar BMW. This is a 2022 model, so we've got the old generation of infotainment, but the 2023 2 Series will have that massive curved display that we saw on the BMW i4, iX, and new generation of M3 with the refresh. I will say they did a fantastic job with the steering wheel as usual. The leather feels great in your hands, nice paddles as well. There's also ambient lighting inside the new 2 Series, which was a surprise for me. In the door cards themselves, right here, are these little screens that light up in a variety of different colors. You can actually upgrade them for a couple $100 to have multicolor BMW M logo stripes as well, which I think looks really neat. Tacora red leather looks really nice, especially with a red exterior. One of 7 interior color options to choose from. We've also got piano black trim that comes as standard. You can choose aluminum trim if you want, if you're worried about the fingerprints. Behind the wheel of the new M240i, I want to show you something real quick. If we go over to car, how funny is this? We've got something called Caring Car. I guess your car cares about you, and it's got different settings to either vitalize or relax you. So what does vitalize mean? Oh, we're playing music. The sunroof's coming down. We're blasting the AC. All right, what about relax? Ooh. This is kind of relaxing, I'm not gonna lie. All right, good work, BMW. Another thing I like about the interior is these little diamond patterns in the door cards themselves. It's subtle, but I like the way they look. Now, put the car in drive, go ahead and pull the lever down. We're gonna put it over 1 into manual/sport. If I pull the right paddle, it'll put us into manual mode. Now there's different driving modes to choose from. Sport mode, comfort, eco pro, adaptive. Obviously, we're gonna go into sport. And then there's a difference between standard sport, and then there's an even sportier version, Sport Plus, and then you can configure an individual setting as well, but we're gonna leave it in Sport Plus. Man, this car really is quick. And this isn't even the M2. And because we've got those optional Michelin Pilot Sport 4S tires and the optional all-wheel drive, the levels of grip and confidence the M240i gives you is really, really impressive. We don't have the most amount of feedback in the steering wheel. It's a bit disconnected from the bumps in the road, but it does have a very direct feel to it. And it gives you the confidence that when you turn in just the slightest amount, the car will rip around the corner. Stability is fantastic. The balance of the chassis is wonderful. The brakes work really well too. I'm honestly very impressed with the way this car handles. Now, because it is all-wheel drive, it weighs a bit more than you'd expect for a small little car at 3,800 pounds. But because of the new 2 Series chassis and the magicians at BMW, it doesn't feel anywhere near as heavy as the car actually is. It feels really lightweight and nimble behind the wheel. It also feels really confidence-inspiring and easy to place on the road. Despite the fact that 3,800 pounds isn't exactly light, the actual dimensions of the car feel very small when you're inside of it driving quickly. The car shrinks around you and feels more like a 3,000-pound go-kart than it does some 3,800-pound large sedan. I mean, obviously this is a coupe, but 3,800 pounds isn't exactly light. The soundtrack too is pretty good. On upshifts, you get these little burbles from the back of the exhaust, but not in a way that are annoying or overdone. It's kind of classy burbles. I'll let you listen. You hear that between the shifts? Now, despite the fact that we've got an 8-speed auto and not a double clutch transmission, the transmission itself shifts really, really quickly. Downshifts are impressive as well. Usually with automatics, the upshifts are very fast, but the downshifts are a bit lackluster. They honestly respond quite quickly in the new 2 Series, and it honestly doesn't really feel like it's missing that double clutch transmission. We've got shorter gear ratios for the first 3 gears, which out in the canyons is fantastic. You get to use those gears more, and it means faster low speed acceleration. And then we've got taller gears at the top, meaning better fuel economy. This thing gets 23 miles per gallon in the city and 32 on the highway, which is pretty impressive for a sports car, I'm not gonna lie. Easily one of my favorite parts about any BMW, but this car as well, is the steering wheel. It feels so good in your hands, and I don't know what type of leather BMW uses on the steering wheel, but it almost gives this tactile, sticky feel to it. You don't even need gloves, and it feels like your hands are glued to the wheel, but not in a weird way where there's weird sticky residue. It's just the natural leather feels so good in your hands. The paddles feel nice as well. I wish they were a little bit more metallic-y and less plastic feeling, but the responsiveness of them is impressive for a non-M car. Honestly, everything about this car performance-wise is impressive for a non-M car. With the all-wheel drive, that extra power, 47 horsepower more than the previous generation M240i, this car is likely as fast as the previous generation M2 competition. I wouldn't be surprised whatsoever. Not quite as much driver involvement as the rear-wheel drive M2, of course, and there's more sound deadening in this car, but overall performance, grip, numbers, and acceleration, this car is without a doubt faster than the previous generation M2. The only car that it's basically slower than of a 2 Series is the M2 CS, which is a $100,000 car. It's kind of in a different price range than this thing. But I am really impressed. We've also got a heads-up display showing me the RPMs as well as the speed limit, what speed I'm currently going, which is nice. That's configurable as well. One thing I wish that was more configurable, however, was the center display. So with Mercedes and Audi, usually you can configure the screen to a large degree. And in the BMW M cars, you can press a button and have the M mode display that's a little bit more driver focused. Not much control on the display here. You can change some information on the right side of the screen, but the overall layout and colors remain the same. Not a huge gripe, but I do wish they added that. Now, on 2023 models, they actually have a whole new display. I'm actually slightly confused why I'm into 2022 when they're coming out with the 2023 pretty soon. But they've got the full digital curved instrument cluster like on the i4 and the updated M3 and some of the other brand new BMWs that I've reviewed that have the massive single display screen that looks a lot more high-end on the interior than this dual screen setup. It still does look nice in here, especially for a 2 Series. This isn't a 7 Series or even a 5 Series. This is a somewhat of an entry-level BMW, and it still feels nice on the inside, but that curved display takes it to a whole nother level. In terms of things I don't like in the interior, it does feel a little bit cheap, all of this. It's supposed to be kind of this soft touch fake leather, but it's not actually that soft, and it's almost faded over time, so it's this gray color that's not as deep black, and it kind of comes off like cheap plastic, especially with this speaker setup sounding a little bit cheap. There's also a bunch of plastic in the door cards as well as the cup holders down here. If they had put leather on that, or maybe just changed the color up a little bit to be a darker black, I think it would look a lot more premium inside. I will say I do really like the seats. The design of the seats is cool too. I like this little contrasted pattern inside the center. They hold you in place well. They're not incredibly supportive bucket seats, but once again, this is not an M2 competition. This is an M240i, and they hold you in place plenty well. This car is also much less about what the plastic dash looks like and much more about how much fun you can have for the money and how great it is in the canyons. Of course, we've got space in the rear. It is pretty small back there, mostly going to be used for groceries, but if you've got kids or smaller passengers, they can fit. My girlfriend actually fit back there. She's 5'3" and there wasn't any problems whatsoever. But if you're a full-size adult male, you're not fitting back there. It's not the most comfortable. I'm curious what it's like compared to the rear-wheel drive version. You can get a rear-wheel drive M240i as well. Obviously, it's not going to be quite as quick off the line acceleration-wise, but it's got to be pretty darn fun in the canyons because of that rear-wheel drive dynamics. Now, the big downfall of this car is the fact that it no longer comes with a manual transmission option. It's a bummer. The problem is nobody's ordering them. If everyone actually ordered the car they say they wanted online, if everyone really did order manual transmission M240i's, then BMW, of course, would offer that transmission available. But because not as many people actually buy the car they claim they want, BMW has eliminated the manual transmission option for cost savings in the 2 Series. However, hopefully we will still see a manual transmission 3-pedal layout inside of the new M2. I imagine they're saving that for the M2 to add more of a differentiating option over the M240i, because this car is already such a performance monster. They need additional appealing elements for the M2 to justify the premium in price, which I believe the manual will be offered with. But hey, maybe not. Maybe that is the end of the manual transmission for the 2 Series, but I hope that it's not. That being said, just because it doesn't have a manual does not mean it's not a ton of fun behind the wheel. This transmission is a lot better than you'd expect for an automatic transmission. The responsiveness is great, and it really adds to the feeling of the car. Man, driving this thing is so easy. It's such an easy car to drive quick, and you immediately feel comfortable behind the wheel because of the driving dynamics and how confidence-inspiring this car is. I think we need to do a little launch control, 0 to 60 in 3.6 seconds. We'll go ahead and tap the traction control button, floor the brake, floor the gas. Wow, no drama, no wheel spin. That takes off really quickly. That's an impressive launch, I gotta say. The turn-in is so quick, it almost feels like the car has rear wheel steering. It really is impressive. Tires are getting a bit overheated now. They're 245s in the front and 255s in the rear, which honestly isn't quite as big as I was expecting, but for the all-wheel drive setup, it is perfectly fine. I imagine if you had something like 255s in the front and 275s at the rear, you would get more traction on twisty roads. Well, guys, there you have it. The new BMW M240i xDrive. Much more fun than I was anticipating. And honestly, in person, this car actually looks pretty darn good. I'll leave you with some noise clips of the 2 Series because this turbocharged 6-cylinder actually sounds pretty darn good. All right, guys, see you next video.